I want to thank the Mohegan Tribal Nation for hosting this meeting and being willing to open the doors for us to come here. I planned to do that in my initial comments and neglected to because I was so heated up in some of the stuff that was said. So Kehaulani, I do appreciate it. I've had some incredible contact with esteemed leaders here from the Supreme Court. Lisa Noelani Robbins has been interviewed on my radio show. I've interviewed Chief Lynn Malurba on the radio show. And to me, the Mohegan survival is incredibly inspiring. The resilience of surviving the colonial period from the 17th century on. So I want to acknowledge that because one of the things that has bothered me throughout the resistance to the Akaka Bill amongst Native Hawaiians, and I noticed some of this in the video that I've seen from the Hawaii hearings, is this sort of lack of knowledge around the history in terms of tribal survival and also U.S. domination. And so I just want to be really explicit in saying that that where I'm coming from isn't about saying I'm not an Indian or I don't want the feathers in my hair, because I don't want to naturalize U.S. power and domination over tribal nations. But Indian itself, I understand, is a category that is contested within Turtle Island. And so I don't want to naturalize that. We don't need to do that to oppose this process. One of the things, though, is that I do understand that this process and creating that threshold in the door actually could affect tribal nations, and that's precisely because it is a federal process and it's contained within a particular framework. So I think that it gets to this issue of why it's precisely because of it's the federal framework that it could potentially be a threat to other tribes. That's part of its ongoing problem. That to me is a symptom that's indicative of what's wrong with this. The thing that I want to just speak to very quickly, 4 points. The issue around land loss and lamenting the land. I see it as way more than grief or lamenting the land. It's really about trying to not obliterate, annihilate, or extinguish an outstanding claim to those lands. So it's not about lamenting. It's actually about protecting the claim. Again, we don't forfeit, we don't surrender. We don't give it up just because it doesn't look like this minute we're going to be able to get them back. That's right now at this particular historical moment. We know that the 50th state, the subsidiary of the U.S. government, has made many attempts over the years to try and sell those lands, and that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs has played a role in that. State of Hawaii et al. State of Hawaii versus Office of Hawaiian Affairs et al. is a perfect example of that. Jonathan Kamakawiwa Ole Osorio was the original plaintiff in that case. He was eventually joined by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs and 3 other Kanaka Maoli individuals to try and stop the executive branch of the state from selling those lands. The 1.6 million acres of land out of the 1.8 million, right? Because we know out of the 1.8, 400,000 are claimed by the federal government for military purposes, 200,000 are claimed for Hawaiian Homelands Territory, and the remaining 1.2 million are what the executive branch wanted to sell. And Office of Hawaiian Affairs backed that lawsuit. But as soon as the rubber hit the road, they sold out that case, right? Office of Hawaiian Affairs and 3 other plaintiffs brokered a deal with the executive branch of the government, and then we get an act passed through the state legislature. They even went so far as to challenge Jonathan Osorio's standing to be the last standing plaintiff in the case by saying he didn't meet the 50% blood quantum rule. Now that's getting ugly. That's going for the jugular. And of course, that case was thrown out even though he was steadfast. He was steadfast in his aloha aina because they said the case was no longer ripe for adjudication because of the legislative mechanism that was put into place. This is more evidence that we do not need a state-driven process that is not the independent state-driven process. That is, the U.S. subsidiary 50th state has been driving the Akaka Bill, has been pushing so hard for federal recognition all these years. That's because they have something to gain. And that's what sets our case apart